researchers, some people in your country created a new language, Turkish language. And if you think it's easy to learn, yes, of course, for you it's very easy. It's one of the easiest languages to learn to read, also Finnish. But for me, as a Swedish people, it's really hard. I think I can 20-25 words in Turkey, mostly from the menu, like tavuk, balik, you know. But I also know some else. But to find out the way you build the language with the suffix all the time, that you create a longer and longer word, like we do in Finnish language also, compared to Swedish, where we have prefix instead of suffix. It's not so easy. And some people try to teach me, like at the Hashitibi University, I have collaborated with them for 7 years. The last 4 years I have courses for PhD students. Some of them are sitting here now that had my course this spring. Happy that you are here, of course. And some of the staff try every morning when they see me say, "Günaydın." So I have a real pronouncement, you know. They try to teach me all the time. And that's easy, to learn some single words. But to have all, because you have also the same alphabet letters, more or less, quite similar, but you have different sounds in some of the letters compared to the Swedish language or the English language. And when they talk about that you need to collaborate much more in the academic world, around the world, I think one of the obstacles is actually the language. Because the more that speak English here, the more open the world will be for you. And that was also for us in Sweden. If we go back some years in Sweden, we were not that clever in English, but today we are on the top level. And why is the reason for that? We start to play with English already in preschool. We sing English songs. And from grade 2-3 is the formal English learning. And it continues all the ways, all the years, up to the students are 19 years old. But at the age of 12, we also have to pick a third language. And that can be German, Spanish, whatever, French, Chinese, whatever. It depends on the teacher we have, what language you can choose. So of course it's important to practice, but we have never dubbed the television. So you know, have you seen the series Paraparcha? Here? Paraparcha, you know what that is? They have broadcasted it in Sweden also. So I've seen the Paraparcha, I follow all program, because then I can listen to the Turkish language and the subtitle is Swedish. I had the idea that I should learn Turkish through that, but of course, I couldn't. It was too hard for me, you know. So, you see, Finland and Sweden, we have almost the same. It's some letter that differs, but they have 3 letters less than Swedish alphabet. And what is speech then? Language is the language you have, the native language. But what is speech? Well, one form of communication. Actually, only one form. We use the mouth when we have the verbal speech. The language is in the brain. The speech is in the mouth, okay? But then we have other forms to communicate. And that's, of course, sign language, body language, gaze, mimics, whatever. You know, the verbal speech is only 20% of the communication, 15 to 20% of the communication. The rest is everything else that we use. And that's also interesting because when I'm here, as I've been now many years and many times, I love to be here in Turkey. It's a beautiful country and a lot of nice people. But when I look at people speaking here, you are very body language, much more than we do in Sweden. So sometimes I can try to understand a little bit because of your mimic and how you gesture, but not all the time, so it's not easy anyway. We have a lot of research about how children develop their language and the speech. And we have Chomsky, you know, the old Chomsky, that said that it's universal. Wherever you are born in the world, you have the same sounds in your language. While children in Japan, they lose the R sound, it will be L after some while. So if you're going to adopt an international child, you should take it before 3 months or something, because at the age of 4, 5, 6, they change the language, are most focused to the native language that you are grown up. But we have a language there that, this is written in Swedish, I know that I couldn't translate it because it was impossible, but you know, Leahy, okay, and Bruce, she's a Swedish researcher. They talk about from the beginning, it's the yaller and the collaboration with the baby, and the sounds, the baby, da da da, blah blah blah. And then you have the content, the vocabulary, the semantic, that you understand also the word, and then the form, how you pronounce the word, and the grammar. And then you have to be conscious about the language you use. And then you have the last, and that's reading and writing. And those steps, every student in Sweden that are taking the program for preschool teacher or primary teacher, they have a lot of knowledge about how language develops in children. They know a lot about the language there. They know everything about Chomsky, whatever, Vygotsky, Piaget, whatever we use. Because we say that, especially if you work in preschool, early childhood education, then you must be super skilled so you can recognize if a child don't develop in the way they are supposed to do. So you can recognize the child and support. I will come to a little bit later about it. So now, because this is a workshop, and workshop for me is that you have to be active a little bit. So now you have to do something. 2 and 2 together as you sit. And then you must tell what you had for breakfast this morning. But you can't use the word. Only the body language. No talk. Just try to have the other one to understand what you had for breakfast. 2 minutes, and then you change 2 minutes for that, okay? Start. Will you ask something? Yeah, you can tell me what you ate this morning, or if you don't have breakfast, tell them something else, but not use any word. You have a partner beside you or there, so you are 2 and 2. You have to move a bit, so you become 2 and 2 together. Turn around or change a bit. And you don't have to write on the iPhone either. Just use the body language. Okay, and now you switch the role. So the other one can guess, and the other one uses the other language. Tell something, whatever. And if you sit alone, you can just move if you wish. You can be 3 also if you're 3 together. Okay, was it easy? No? Imagine children that can't speak verbally and have no alternative. Imagine how they feel when they can't explain anything for you. That's the situation for many children. That's also the situation for a lot of children that move from another mother tongue. Like we have a lot of children from Syria and Sweden, you have also here. They can't speak Swedish yet. That's the situation for them. How can they tell the preschool teacher or the staff or other what they wish to have or how they feel? It's only a small practice for you, but for many people this is really everyday life, you know. And what's important is early stimulus. Linguistic stimulus is A and O, the best, and a child can never be care enough when they pick their parents, you know, when they choose their parents. Because to grow up in a family where there is a lot of books, papers, everything that people talk a lot to the children, that's of course is a very important environment to grow in your speech and language development. But sorry to say, we have many families in Sweden today. They have no books, they have no newspaper. It's free to borrow books at the library, it doesn't cost anything. We have a lot of libraries in every school, every city around, but they're not used to do that. So we have I have been involved in some research project where we tried toddlers, you know, families that have children below 1 year, because we have something that we call open preschool for that age, that mothers and fathers can coming together, where we have preschool teachers and psychologists. And then we have project that we tried to improve them to borrow books. And at every library in Sweden, we have a lot of children books in many, many different languages, almost all languages we have in the country. We translate it, even if we have some policymakers today that would like to reduce that, but we still have it, and hopefully we will have it. So they can read a lot of children's book in Arabic or Turkey or whatever. And that's good, of course, because we need those people that have never been used to read or write with the children, that they must practice to do that. And new technology, yeah, every preschool, every child, every 2-year child in Sweden have their own iPad. I think 95% or something have iPad, 2 years old, in their home. And in preschool, in school, we have computers, we have iPads, whatever. But we also see that reading aloud for children is very important, goes down in many families today. Why? Yeah, they put the iPad beside the pillow in the bed with the child, and they have a fairy tale on the iPad. But that's not good enough. That's not the same as one father, mother, siblings, whatever, grandmother, sitting and reading aloud and showing the book pages. They can discuss what words there are in the text, whatever. So the reading aloud in the family had gone down in Sweden for a while, but we work to have it increase again. So it can never replace human interaction. That's important to know, even if we need a new technology, of course we need it. It's very good to have, but it's better also to have a human living beside you. We know also the teacher influence and teacher effects is one of the most important factor for children to succeed. And of course the approach and the tone the teacher set in the classroom is of course positive. If it's positive learning environment, the children will learn more quickly. If it's negative, a lot of barking on the children, or they nagging on the children all the time, they're talking in negative terms. Instead of telling the children what to do, they tell them what not to do. So they say don't run instead of saying walk. That's a very important way of changing the language, how you give instruction to the children. Because if you have a child, they don't hear the word not or don't. They just hear run, so they continue to run. Because not and no and don't doesn't mean anything, it's only a negative word. So that's why we have to do. And of course the teacher's expectation also, empathy, their own feelings to work with children, and believe that every child can learn is of course very important when you work in early childhood education, but also in all education, I should say. Also if I work at university level, I almost work with master students in Sweden in the program for special educators. And of course, if I don't believe that they can be a good teacher in special ed, I should quit. I should go and work in a food store or something else. Of course, I must show that I believe. The role model that we heard earlier is very important also at university level. And the strength that I can produce positive impact on children and students is very important. And ethical approach, we heard a little bit about ethics this morning from one of the professors. What is right and how should I behave? which can be connected to our governing documents and our values in Sweden. The core values in the curriculum for preschool or for primary or for every school, also university actually, is about ethics. How teachers should behave, how we should treat each other. And that is important. And at the student level at university today, we have strong documents. We have it also all the way in preschool. So if I, for example, should treat you in a bad way, as you were my student, you can report me. And then it will be a process for me. And in the worst way, I have to quit. Because we have so strong documents and we have to follow them. And the students are very well aware about these documents. And the families are aware about it, so they report. There are a lot of teachers that have been reported to the school inspection if they don't behave in a good way. And then they have to solve it in one or another way. And also the scientific approach. Of course, we know that everything must be from evidence-based research, whatever we do, whatever we talk about, and also about how to be proved in the practical settings, you know. And also salutogenic. I think you know about Antonovsky, the doctor in Israel after the Holocaust. He was an amazing man. You know, he found a lot of women that have really bad mental health when they came out from the Holocaust because what Hitler had done to all the Jewish people. And then he found a smaller group, 20 women or something, that had kept their mental health. And Antonovsky, he wondered, how come? What did they do? So he interviewed them. And they told him that they had found somebody else they could help in the Holocaust. And they could manage to do it without Gestapo saw them. And that was meaningful for them. And they survived also through that they helped other people. So we also used to say to teachers, so whatever a child should do, whatever activity they are supposed to do, they should handle it themselves or with support. They should understand what they are going to do. And when they understand and when they can handle it, it will be meaningful. And there you have also the motivation to continue to work, of course. And many things that we plan for children in the school, preschool school today, are actually not that understandable. Sometimes we are over their head too much, or we have too low or too hard, so it's hard for the children to learn. The sounds, they're very important when you have to start to read and write. So what are the sounds? Where can we find the sounds? Where are they? And why do we need them? Yeah, we have them. You hear a lot of sounds when I speak now. You have all the sounds in your alphabet when you speak, but the sounds are not so easy, you know. So we have to play with them in preschool. And when I work as a teacher in primary, or a teacher with special needs, every time I have the children from preschool that have had a good quality in the preschool, they already were prepared to start to read. Some of them, I think today we have 30-40% among the 6 years that already can read when they come to school. They have already practiced a lot of reading and writing in preschool, and that's how it should be, of course. And in Sweden we start school still at 7, from this year at 6, like Norway. Finland still 7. I think most of the countries in Europe have 6 years or 5. In many, like in Belgium or in the United States, I visit a lot of school and preschools because I've been living in the United States for a while. They say they start with 4 years, but the 4-year school there is more like preschool in Sweden. It's more, while in Sweden we have playing, learning by playing. That's the most important. And when OECD measured preschools around the world, the Swedish preschool were high raised on top level to be the best in the world. And many other countries have imitated our way of working in the preschool. So we are proud of the preschool, of course. And when you work with children, or if you do research in this field, so then you can find out what sounds can you hear in your own language, and how can you deal with it. And, you know, we have actually a man from Israel living in my part of Sweden, and he speaks 11 languages fluently. It's amazing, 11 languages. And you know what his research is about? Yeah, he's searching for the sounds, the phonemes in a dialect in the north of my landscape. It's really, really amazing. I said, hi, you come here and learn a language, and you're looking for the small phonemes in the dialect, because we have really old dialects that look more similar to, I don't know, Icelandic language perhaps, or the old Nordic language, you know. But it's amazing to be so interested in language, so you look for the smallest pieces in the world. And how can you create activities that actually support the children to increase their vocabulary? Because that's one of the most important things, is that they have a good, many words in the vocabulary. That's what we see when children move to Sweden and they have another mother tongue. So in PISA measurement, for example, we were on top level together with Finland when PISA started, and then we decreased, and Finland still continued on the top level. One reason was that we had so many more immigrants, so many more 15-year boys with other language compared to Finland. And because if you move to Sweden when you're 12 years old, you can't keep up with the Swedish language until you're 15. It's impossible. When you start to school at 6-7 years old in Sweden, you need to have between 8,000 and 10,000 words in your vocabulary to keep up with the school language. And when you quit at the age of 16, before you go to the high school, you have about 45,000 words. And me as an adult have between 150,000 and 200,000 words in the vocabulary. But where do the children learn all these words? Where are they? Can they pick them from the trees, or are they laying around on the ground? Where are the words? Where can they find them? In the books. Some people say when we talk to children, yes, but that's only if we start to talk in a new subject. But you know, the most common daily talk with our kids is, hi, how was it in school? What food did you have? What did you do? How was it? Whatever. It's the same word going around and around and around. You can listen to yourself if you have family and listen to what word you use all the time. But if you start a new subject, you start to discuss something, to discuss how bees are going to survive in this environment where we have so much pollution, then they will have a lot of new words to the vocabulary. And if you don't talk about that, you must have it from the books. That's why you have to start to read, but that's why you have to read aloud for the children before. I would say that many times. Reading aloud is one of the most important things. So now, you can, one more activity, only short. Now you can speak to each other. You can talk to each other about whatever, but you can't use A, I, and S. You see, A, I, and S in the word. You have to take them away from your word. Okay, please? If you look, you can find your partner. Okay. So just a few minutes. Start one of you. Find some words without A, I, S. You can continue to try home with your family, with your friends, whatever, when you are at the party, whatever. Was it hard? It is really difficult, isn't that? To leave some sounds out from your language. It's really problematic. But that's also how it is for some children. They don't have every sound in their language. They can't pronounce every sound. They don't have it, they can't find it. So that's of course is a problem for them. So reading aloud and talk about should begin early, straight when the baby are born. I gave a book to one of my PhD students this spring because he got his second girl, and I bought a baby book for him here. Because I told him, you must start to read now. You must start to use the books the minute the baby are born. You should start, and never end. Even if you are a teacher for older, you can always start a lesson by reading aloud for them. What subject you're dealing with, no problem. You can have a book that you read aloud. And of course that we must support to collaborate with families, because I know one thing from here, and that is that people don't read aloud that much in Turkey. I know that because I have read articles from researchers here in Turkey, and also many of my, you told me, the PhD students, my colleague, tell me, it's not common that you read aloud in the family here. And it's not so common in preschool either that you read aloud, or in primary school. Well, it should be every day an activity that you plan for, that you prepare yourself for. It should not be an activity just to calm down the children or to have a break or fruit or something. No, it must be planned. And also we know that boys decrease even more than girls. All over the world it's the same. I have a project that I have followed boys on the grade 4, 5, 6 in Sweden. We had a research project that we followed them. And they had to answer my questionnaire and interviews. And we had a lot of small projects going on with them to increase the reading interest. But you know, some of them said to me, you know, Katren, there is not any single book in the library that are interested. I said, do you mean that by all these hundreds and hundreds of books, you can't find any book? No, I can't. So what I mean is that if you have boys, you must find their interest. Because most of the teachers in the early childhood education are actually women. And we choose a lot of relation texts, you know. It could be other. Why many boys like to have more facta text, like about snakes and whatever, frogs and whatever. So then we have to find every child's interest. It's very important to do that. But also that the father in the families here in Turkey and in other countries must read aloud, so they have a role model. They talked about role model recently. That's very important to be a role model for the children. 15 years old boys, especially with the immigrant background, they say it's, you know, to read. It's not, we don't do it, you know, boys don't read. So they decrease the reading. While the girls, always on top level. We have 60–70% of girls at the university today are women in all programs, medicine, engineering, whatever. Many more women attend the university in Sweden compared to the men. And school, when we start, you know, we have the Swedish Council on Technology and Assessment. They used to control for different things, especially in the field of medicine, but actually they also control for the test we use when we test children in school if they have problem with the reading and writing. And they actually found out that this is to improve the reading skills. Spelling, reading comprehension, reading speed, and the ability to detect the language phonetic structure are the most important way to deal with. And what they said about the test was that some of the tests that we use, that we have import from other places around the world, and some have been transferred to the Swedish, while others are also produced in Sweden to the Swedish language. But some of them are not actually evidence-based. We use a lot of tests around the world that are not so strong evidence-based. Also here, because how can you make a test evidence-based in a real way? Yeah, you need to have it on a big population to see that it's really, but some of these tests are only tested for a smaller population, and perhaps not on all the ages that we test them for. So from spoken language to written, it's also important that you need to have another perspective, because someone else must understand what you are saying, what you're reading. Written language are distance, you know, is far away from here, the author are not here with me. While if I spoke to you, I'm here, you can ask me, so I can control myself, I can change myself. But when you read the book, the author is far away, and you have to read between the lines, interference between the lines, because it's important for an author to write everything. So they write a lot between the lines that you have to think about yourself. They don't explain everything in a book. And that's also what many children have a problem with, is to read between the lines. So also that's also how teachers put the question when they read a story for the children. What question do they put? Do they ask what color did Elliot had on his cap today when he went to school? And you can see on the line in the book that the cap was blue. But instead the teacher can say, why do you think Elliot chose the blue cap today? And it's totally another question, and it will be totally another discussion that you have to go between the lines. And that's also a skill the teacher need to learn. You're not born with it. You have standards for writing. When you speak, you don't have standards in that way. And also, we are born, most of the people are born to learn to speak. We have about perhaps 1.5% of children that never, some children with severe autism, for example, they never start to speak. Perhaps not because they can't due to their motoric skills, but they don't understand the meaning while talking with people. So it's totally on different levels. But written language is an artifact. Somebody have developed it. Somebody have invented it. We are not born to write or read. We must learn to do that, and that's very different. But understanding is the same, even if it's spoken language or written language. You must understand what it is about. So a word, of course, a word is a composition of phonemes, of small sounds, phonemes. The smallest meaning, that also have different meaning in every word. So and the morpheme are the smallest meaning. Because if you look at D, O, G, the three phonemes, and each of them doesn't mean anything. When you put them together, it will be the word dog. A dog is a morpheme. That's the meaning. While D, O, G are the phoneme. So the morpheme can be combined with other, like dog walker, dog leash, whatever. And we have, of course, simple words, compound words. And in Swedish language, we have a lot of compound words. So many people, when they, not only people that come with other native language, but also typical Swedish native language, they have problems with the compound words because they are meaningful. And if you don't know them, you will have problem. We used to say the nurse, nurse in English. In Swedish, the word for nurse is sjuksköterska. Okay? To see sound, sjuksköterska. But if you split it up, it will be a sick nurse. And that's not a nurse anymore. Like we used to take about long, hairy man. Or a long man with long hair. I mean, it differs how we compound and how we split up the words. So every language, you must learn this way of dealing with words. So the theoretical platform for reading, yes, everything I talked so far is about the speech and language development. To know the sounds, to know the phonemes, to be aware about what language is, what is meaning, why do I have to read to learn to read, why? What is the meaning with that? And from teaching to learning, the competent child, I mean, we need to have more competent children in the world. We have heard it all this morning. We need to have students that are very skilled to continue. We need to have competent children not to be unemployed. There's a lot of high unemployment here, but also in many other European countries today. We have a lot of dropouts from school all over the world, not only here. We work hard with that in Sweden. Many of the dropouts in Sweden are dropouts on grade 7, 8, 9, or high school. Some of them have neuropsychiatric disorders like ADHD or autism spectrum disorder, and they are bullying in school, that's why they drop out. Or because the teacher don't plan to have other activities with them so they can understand it. So that's a big problem, and that's why we in every teacher program in Sweden today, all teachers have also a course about neuropsychiatric disorder. They must know about them because we have an inclusive school in Sweden. We don't separate children in Sweden. So we have all these children with ADHD, dyslexia, whatever. They are in the mainstream classroom, in the typical classroom. And also children with autism. The only children we separate in special classes, we can do, if the parents allow us, is children with intellectual disability. They can be in a special class in the same school as all the other children. But the parents can say no to that, so then they are integrated, we used to say, because they are not inclusive in the straight way. So that's why we have to work very hard with the reading, of course. And also playing with those words in preschool, like the word bus. If you take away B, what will it be? Us. Or if you take away bus, S is with U, whatever. Play with the words. Take away sounds from the one word and play with it with the children. That's one way to be aware about the language. And reading methods, we have so many research about this in Sweden. We have a lot of research. And when I worked as a teacher during the 70s, we imported a whole language approach from the United States. Sorry to say, because English is totally different language. If you look at how easy language can be, Finland, Finnish, Turkish, Portuguese, whatever, are the easiest language when you start to read. Turkish is very easy to start to read. Swedish is in the middle of the language, English and Icelandic is in the bottom. It's the hardest language to learn when you start to read. Okay. But after a while, both in Finland and here in Turkey, the grammar becomes very hard. So it's only because you have this, what we say, transparentic orthography. Every word spells as it sounds. It's one-to-one. So the word kukkola in Finland spells with 2 K, while in Sweden it's a C and a K. So you can compare a lot of, it's very interesting to compare language and see, and English is awful. Don't you agree with me, Elliot, that English is awful problematic? With all this, you know, age and thought, and you don't know where you place the age, whatever. You have to learn it. And they have words like no, but actually it spells knov. So how can we know that? Knov? Why don't they have K and O when they only say no? So it's interesting with language. So of course we know a lot about reading methods. We don't have to do more research in that field, I promise. What we need to do research about is how teachers use the methods, how they work with different type of methods, how they apply the methods to different type of children, the variation. And that's the most important today, to see, can they really apply method to different types of learning styles, or can they apply the method, do they use it in the same way even if you have 2 children that need something extra? That's the research we need to do. So learning to read, okay, we have the decoding, the phoneme, you know, the phoneme grapheme, and then practice, and then automatization, we need to be automatized to read. After that, we can understand what we are reading about, we can have experience of this, and we can reflect about it. But we used to say, from decoding to you have a fluency reading, it's about 5,000 hours of practice. That's the worst. 5,000 hours of practice. So can the children practice that in school or in preschool? No, of course not. The family must work with this. They must help the children, support the children so they read at home. They don't have to read with them, but they must sit beside and listen to them. Because when children read or write, if nobody takes care about it, if nobody listens, if nobody reads, why should I do that then? So that of course is important. So literacy is important to all subjects you have. You know, in the lower grades we learn to read, but then we read to learn. So even if you talk about mathematics, whatever, the reading is important, whatever you are doing. And also when you become older, of course, you have to read in many different ways. I used to ask some students if they can find any profession, occupation that they don't need to read. Perhaps you can find it here, because here you still have those low salary work in the field of tourism or cleaning products. But you know, in Sweden, you can't get such a work if you have lower grade than high school. You'll never find that work. Everybody in high school is the lowest grade, so everybody must read. So that's different to societies, of course. Okay, so reading, I will talk about this a bit, I'll go further on. Okay. take this also. So how do you know if the children, students can what's needed for reading? How do you know that? How do you know if they have found the sounds, if they have started to be aware about the language, to be aware about the words in the books? How do you know that? Can you just guess? Yeah, sometimes people do. Sometimes teachers just guess. They talk about children as they know. I have heard teacher in the program for preschool in Sweden say, oh, there was a 3-year-old boy, and you know, I think he had dyslexia. And I said, how can you speculate in that? He's only 3 years old. Yeah, but you know, like this. And that's what teachers do sometimes. They speculate in a lot of diagnoses. But that's not our task. Our task is to see, to documentate, to make documentation, to reflect, to look at every child, and find out what is it about, to do a lot of observations. And not guess, because a diagnosis is only a description about something. It has no value in that sense. It's only value for the family and for the child itself. So every child's interest, as I said before, is very important. So you must find it and have lots of books in the classroom. I have seen here at some preschool that they have a library, but it's locked. They open it some days a week, but it should be books over the preschool, so children can pick them. And I think it is also at some other preschool, of course, I'm sure about that. But I reacted when I saw that preschool, I asked for it because I can't understand that books should be available all the time for children, every day. Books, you know, like the toddlers can chew them, they can bite the books, they can do whatever. Books are just things you use every time for small children. And also other type of material that they can use in between, like forming letters, like playing with letters, doing other things, of course. And you must control how they progress. Vygotsky had the proximal development soon. Of course, it's important for this teacher to find these childs soon, so you can increase them always a little bit, put a little bit over what they know. And you have also to talk to the child. I mean, children knows quite much actually. If you discuss with them, they know much more than we think. So if I ask a child for, what do you know about this book? Can you tell me when you see the picture on the front page? Can you tell me what you think this is about? Children can have their own imagination and they can tell me, even if it's not correct. They can just talk about it. And then I say, okay, you think this is about a grandfather, and I go, okay, then we start to read. What do you think it is about? And then we start to read, and suddenly the child, oh no, it's not the grandfather, it's not the grandmother. No, it wasn't, but the photo looked like that. So, okay, we discuss it all the time. So the dialogue is very important to have, to talk, a lot to discuss and talk with the child. And scaffolding, of course, the support we give is important. A lot of children need support full-time for many years or only a short period of their life. And when you talk about Finland and their succeed, yes, they are very clever. You're not to be a teacher in Finland, you have to have a master degree in whatever you are. And it's as hard as become a doctor or a lawyer to enter the university. They only take in 1 of 10 in Finland. But the most important way why they success is actually that 37% of every 1 grade class go out from the classroom and have support from a teacher in special education in Finnish or mathematics. And they have this support as long as they need until they succeed. Then they don't need to come. And they go every day 20 minutes per day. And that's the best way. We know that for research also. 20 minutes per day if you're going to support a child. To have once a week, you can let it be. It's no use. 20 minutes a day, or at least 10 minutes if you can't find 20 minutes, but the most important is to have a regular. And that's what they do in Finland. 37%, it's almost half the class. And that's good. And writing, I will tell you a little bit about writing, because writing is also very important. The children have the material they read to start to write. Because many children start to read by writing. They start to learn to write their own name or the different words, and they read the words. And that's the starting point for reading for many, many kids. Okay, now you can, do you write with a pen? Do you have a pen? So if you're right-handed, take the pen in left hand. And if you're left-handed, take the pen in right hand. And continue to write now when I'm talking, okay? Do you have paper and pen, or do we need to borrow? Yes, practice it. It's really funny. You have to do something also for your concentration. Okay, continue to write. I will stop for a while and ask you. So, writing and reading is the same, two sides of the same coin. Reading, decoding, comprehension, and motivation. Writing, encoding, building, ideation. Encoding is write by hand or by computer, and in Sweden curriculum we have to do both. To reach the goal in grade 3, the children must use a pen and a computer. Writing also you must be creative when you write the text. You know, when you read, the text already exists, you only have to comprehend it. But to write, you must figure out what I'm going to write about. So are you continuing to write with the wrong hand? Okay, that's good. So language, different side is of course phonological, you know the phoneme. And then you have semantic, what it's about, the understanding of the word. And morphological, the origin of the word. And then you have syntactic, how you build the sentence. And then you have pragmatic, how you use the language. Is it okay to write with the wrong hand? No. Can you imagine how many children still around the world are forced not to use the hand they normally should choose? They are forced to write with the right hand, because left hand is always problematic for many teachers. I don't know why. We had it also during the 50s in Sweden, the forced children. So in some classes you can see that they actually couldn't use the hand, they put the hand on the back. But today it's normal to have both left and whatever, left or right. We don't discuss that anymore, it's no problem. I don't know how it is here, but it wasn't so easy to write with the wrong hand, was it? No. Okay, support writing, being a role model, as we have heard before, and give instruction. And you must have some idea what to write about, and then you must give some reading stories, doing activities, playing, whatever, so the children have some topic to write about. And also, you know, spelling program. We use a lot of spelling program on the computer. If children have problem with the spelling, because the spelling is important. Why? Yeah, because if you spell wrong, it goes down the reading ability. It slows down the reading. So it's important to spell correct, of course it is. So stimulate the writing, you can do it in a different way. And you need also there to have committed and competent teachers, as you need with everything else you are doing. And support them to discover what they like to do, the joys they have and whatever. Now I will end with some little short about speech and language impairment, because between 5 and 7% of the children in the preschool ages and also continue have, of course, some sort of speech and language impairment. And the big variation, but if the child cannot start to use some words at the age of 2, that's a really warning signal. It should bring in the brain of the teacher to figure out what. And because the language, it has to do with the cognitive ability, to the cognitive development. The language development is very important for the, I mean, even if we can talk about deaf children that never start to speak, but they use the sign language. In Sweden, the sign language is the first language for the deaf population, and Swedish is the second language for them. So they use other ways of dealing, so that's not a big issue for them. And language impairment is very complex. It's very complex, and you don't know, some of it is genetic, you heritage it from the parents, as you do with dyslexia, with other things, with autism, with ADHD. It's a lot of that are genetic that you heritage. And what is growing today in Europe is pragmatic language disorder. Pragmatic language is how you use the language in a correct way. What can I say here and now? How can I use? How do I know when I can start to speak, whatever? That's a growing problem. We don't know why. So children having less vocabulary is a risk factor, of course. Having problem to use the words is another risk factor. And some of them be more calm and go back, withdraw themselves, or some will be worried and demanding. So it differs how the child reacts when they have it. And you know, speech and language impairment means actually communication disorders such as stuttering, impaired articulation, language impairment, or voice impairment. I have been here in Turkey for many years. I have been giving lecturing for teachers that work with children with dyslexia. I gave it this spring. But for some years ago, I was invited to give lecturing for specialists how to support children that have speech and language problem in some or another way. And actually, that was really surprising because what they did here was face massage. They used face massage. And I said to them, face massage is lovely. I would love to have that whenever. But it doesn't have the speech and language development. It's nothing to do with the speech and language. Nothing at all. If you should support the speech and language, you must find the sounds in the mouth. You must work with the motoric skills in the mouth. You must also help the children to be aware about where the sound, how it sounds. You can lose a lot of, we have a lot of material in Sweden. I brought some to them actually when I was here. You can see how if you use the you can also feel if you say where you put the, you can feel on your own body where you put the sounds in the mouth. And then you can practice that with the child. But face massage has nothing to do to support speech and language development. It's only stupid, not old idea, I think. So I had a full day with them, and I hope they don't only do this anymore at that place where I was. So also non-verbal, of course. Then you use alternative and augmentative communication skills like pictures, photos, whatever, sign language. You can create a lot of material that you can use with the children when they need other material to communicate. And there's a lot of other difficulties coming together with this. It's motoric skills, it's perception, language awareness, of course, but the working memory, playing, drawing, writing, concentration, cognitive behavior. And I used to say, if you have children that behave in a very bad way, and teachers talk a lot about bad behavior or social emotional behavior, whatever, you should test them instead. You should go and check, control for the language development. You should control them for a lot of other skills. Because children that have problems, they know that they can't do everything that the friends can do. But they don't know how to explain that. So instead of talking about it, they do some behavioral movement in some other ways. So of course that's important. And you can also sing songs. I put some on this, it's really, I will not sing now, the time is out from this room. But you can always use vowels and consonants together and sing a song that you know. So you can create the song and then you can sing with the children. It's really, yeah, I see you sing. Can you do it alone? Hey, your friend, you sing. Can you sing it alone? I saw you sing.
Ba 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 bi 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 ba bi 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 ba bi 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 ba 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 bi bi ba bi ba bi bi ba 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 bi 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 ba.
Thank you, very good. That's great. Okay, play and use material. We have a lot of material that we use in preschool or school in Sweden, the primary school. These are babblarna, the name of them. They have different names like bibi, dada, bobo. There's a vowel consonant name of them. It's evidence-based, all this material that we use. And application for iPad and computer. There's an amazing amount of these applications today. What you need is to have the skill to choose the one that this child needs. Because the commercial market is so big today, so you must have the competence to choose. A teacher must know the most important key strategy will be when starts the child's literacy development. Okay, you must know that. Why can it be a problem to learn to read and write? Okay. Why can it be a problem to teach reading and writing skills? And what did you learn? Reflect about that. That's also important. Quality, OECD talk about quality as the child development and child outcome when they measure quality. And we use in Sweden, we work on organization level, group level, and individual level. That's why all preschool teachers, they are brainwashed with this these three different levels that we need to work with all the time. And if you have big groups, like 25 for one teacher, then you should teach yourself how to make groups, smaller groups of the children. Then you can have time to work with those children that need a little bit extra. Because if you place children in groups and if you give them some task to work with, they do it. Look in Singapore, where they have 60, 70 children in mathematics in one classroom, and they use the theory of variation. So in mathematics, they have one problem, and they place the children in groups, and they have to solve the mathematical problem with 5 different solutions and come back to the teacher. And they do it, they are so clever. So the theory of variation is important, of course. Core values, of course, we talk about equality or equity. You can remember this, you can find this on Google. It's a very big difference between equality and equity. So in Sweden we use the word equity instead of equality much more today. Especially when we are in the field of support children in different ways. And you know, young learners was asked about what a good teacher is, and they said, teachers shall be kind, having a sense of humor, they can explain things well, organize a lot of activities, letting us work in group, give us feedback, but most of all, teachers should make learning fun and interesting. That's what children say. And then I used to say, today, when children have all this, you know, on internet, whatever, it's not easy to be as fun as the Google, internet, whatever, but we can try. And then we talk about teachers, because if there is one thing I would love to change, not only here, many other classes, is the teacher program for teacher education. It's absolutely too bad, because they don't have this theory of variation, they don't give this role model, they have the old-fashioned style at many universities still. And then you have the role model from when you were a child and went in school, because you have this old-fashioned teacher still. So you need to long life learners, of course, but also work in an inclusive way, create activities for all. And also diversity is a positive way of working. Be aware about your own language when you talk about the children in the group you have or in the class you have. What language do you use, ethical or not? And use the variation in teaching a material. I think that's very important. I think the university have to do a lot around the world to change the teacher program in many different ways. Why is writing and reading important then? Yeah, okay. Still too many people around the world, they can't read and write. You have 780 million adults that can't read and write. That's a lot of people. Most of them are women, of course. And among 15 to 24 years, all half alphabetism or illiterate has increased from 83 to 89%. Still, 120 million young people can't. Most of them lives in South Asia and south of Sahara. And that, of course, has to do with the economic situation in many countries, but also about the competence and skill that they have. So summary, okay, I will not say everything on this. Work with speech, communication and language, reading aloud, reading aloud, reading aloud. I can't say there's too many, it's so important, you know. And never blame the child when they fail. Look at your own way of teaching. What can you do to change your way of teaching instead of blaming the child? That too many teachers still blame children in the preschool and in the school. And collaborate with the parents. That's very important, of course. And also with other professionals, with other teachers. So best practice is collective learning, that you collaborate with a lot of people. So what research do we need to have today that we lack? Because all of this I talk about, we already have the research, evidence-based research. We need different native language and dilemmas in the classroom, because we have a lot of migration around the world with different native language. How can we deal with this? That's a very important question. Word and text comprehension. How do preschool teachers work with the children so they can understand every single word? How do they do? Do they explain the words? Or do they just use a lot of words without explaining them? And especially if you have children that have extra, are in need of extra support. And also about the alternative communication way. We need a lot of research, but we can also use it for children with other native language. So, thank you for your attention. I think it's coffee time now, isn't it? Coffee break. Or tea time, okay. Or in Sweden we say fika. Fika.
Evet, Göteborg Üniversitesi'nden Profesör Doktor Katren Sward'a Çalıştay için teşekkür ediyoruz ve katılım sertifikasını vermek üzere doktor öğretim üyesi Ayşegül Bayraktar'ı sahneye davet ediyorum.